All right, it's time for our Kegel exercises, Twila.
Yes, it is.
And so why do we do our Kegels? Well, it's important for our pelvic health for both men and women. These exercises help support our pelvic organs in women, the bladder, the vagina, the rectum, the urethra. And for some people, it can actually improve sexual functioning. Some people say it makes orgasms more intense and more frequent.
Well, I think that's a good enough reason to do them right
Nobody's going
there.
to argue with that, I don't think. So let's go ahead and do it.
Okay. 3
times a day.
6
Days a week.
9
Seconds per Kegel.
and 12.
Kegels in a row to make a rep. It's so easy. Just do 12 of these 3 times a day. When you're doing them, hold it for 9 seconds. You will be the envy of your neighborhood. You will have a pelvic floor like a chain link fence, so you will be able to pull a trailer.
If you so choose. And don't forget, you can always go to the GynoCast Facebook page and get an infographic, which kind of details out the customizable plan. You can print it out, put it on your fridge. You can put it up in your office. We can share it with your friends. And it's a great resource to have. So
Indeed.
Make sure that you go and do your exercises today.
Yes.
Stay tuned.
Welcome back to the GynoCast. My name is Dr. Eric Heegaard.
I'm Twila Dang.
So nice to see you again.
You too.
And we're going to be talking about a subject we talk about quite a bit that many of the subjects we discuss on the GynoCast
Yes.
are things that people need and want to talk about, but sometimes don't know where to go to get their information, and sometimes are not topics that you want to just sort of, I don't know.
Well, they're not polite dinner time conversations sometimes.
No, I think some of them maybe, but many of them.
I think sometimes it
No.
depends on who your friends are.
That's right.
I think I've been doing this. I've been working at this long enough with you and doing some iteration of this type of talk that our dinner conversations sort of with my group of friends have now radically shifted. They're a lot more open than they used to
You're
be.
kind of the go-to gal now.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly even have questions for you. People ask me, are you recording today? And I said, actually, I'm recording tomorrow. And they actually had questions for you.
Okay.
And that's become a regular part of my life now, of like having little notes in my phone that, person A or person B told me to ask Dr. E this, and this. So I'm glad we have a forum like this where we can kind of share this information.
Exactly. So that reminds me that what I want to do with the GynoCast is expand the conversation from your dinner table and your 4 friends to the universe, Twila.
Okay.
To the universe. Because everybody needs to know about this
It's
stuff.
not a lofty ambition or anything.
No, it's not.
No, not
It's
at all.
not.
I like it.
So today, I thought we'd talk about vaginitis.
Oh.
What do you think that means?
I mean, I kind of know what it means. I'm in the know on some of these things.
Mm-hmm.
But when you connect the word vaginitis to expanding your dinner table conversation, I feel like this might be one of those ones that I'm not necessarily eager to use to expand my dinner time conversation.
That's right.
But I get it.
So obviously the word vagina is in there.
Yes.
So I think we can figure out where that directs itself. And itis, as you know, you don't want to have an itis.
No.
Bronchitis is inflammation of the bronchi and the lungs. Otitis is inflammation of the ear. And
Wait a minute. What?
Yeah.
What is that?
Otitis. Like,
I've never heard of
internal-
that my whole life.
yeah,
I've been
well-
living a long time.
Well, that's what it is.
I always like that you always wind up referring to something medically related that I haven't learned before.
Good. So
and then all of a sudden it's like, that's going to be like my new Scrabble word, right?
So have you ever heard of otitis media?
No.
Or otitis externa? Otitis media is inflammation of the inner ear.
Oh.
Colitis is inflammation of the bowel.
Yeah, I know
Cystitis,
colitis.
inflammation of the bladder.
Yeah.
Prostatitis, inflammation of the prostate. So vaginitis is exactly what you would think it is. It is an inflammatory condition of the vagina,
Okay.
which nobody really wants.
No.
And so we're going to talk about today what vaginitis is, what are the risk factors, what are the symptoms, what we can do to take care of it.
Okay. Now, I guess I have a question before you even get started. I've always understood, or at least thought I understood, vaginitis to have more to do with a particular odor or smell as opposed to inflammation. So I'm assuming they're connected.
They are.
But I had a misunderstanding of what I thought it was.
Yeah. So, and before we go too far, I want to go back to something we've talked a lot about and will continue to talk about on the GynoCast is anatomy.
Okay.
Because I want us to use correct anatomy. And I think we talked about this on some of our other episodes where we talked about people use the word vagina to be anything,
and basically anything below the belly button,
down there,
if it's
down south, under the hood, and so the vagina is the fibromuscular tube that goes from the cervix to the outside. So it's just the vaginal canal. It's just the tube.
Okay, I feel like at some point we should, just for our sake and for the sake of our fun listeners and our lovely listeners, we should get some sort of really great, specific diagram.
Yep.
And get that shared up. We'll get that shared up on our website. We'll get that shared up on the Facebook page. I just think it's a good idea, is to have a reference point. Sometimes when we're talking in these lessons, it'll be nice to have someplace for people to go and go, okay, this is what you're talking about. Because remember, a very long time ago, you and I had in our old radio days, we had done an episode where we talked about the fact that most women have never actually seen their own vagina. Yeah. They've never even looked at it.
Well, you have to be really flexible.
Well, but even remember, the experiment was that they gave women a mirror and they got to look at it for the first time, and they had a very visceral reaction because they've never even thought about looking at it, even though it's so important to them.
Right, exactly.
So I love the idea of us sort of having some sort of a reference point. So I'll put
I
that in my clerical mind. I'll figure it out.
Think about that. Put that on your list of to-dos along with the
only
9 million.
1 million and 2. There you go.
So just, as a general sort of definitions, the vagina is the fibromuscular tube that leads from the cervix to the outside. The external genitalia, which is everything really except for the vagina, the vaginal opening, is you can call the vulva. Mm-hmm. And so if you're going to call your doctor's office, and that sort of thing, and you are trying to express what your issues are, you want to try to use the correct anatomy so that they know what you're talking about. And the vulva includes basically the external, everything on the outside, which includes the labia minora, the labia majora, the clitoris, the mons pubis, the tissue around there.
Okay.
So we're talking about the vagina today and issues thereof and inflammation of the vagina. And so you had mentioned, what are the symptoms of vaginitis? Well, the most common symptom is, number one, there can be an odor. Mm-hmm. Number two, there can be sometimes abnormal bleeding. Number three, discharge. Abnormal discharge. I'm going to put parentheses.
Yeah, let's be specific about that because discharge is one of those things that women don't really understand what is normal versus not normal. And we've heard everything from, you can have very little to none to up to I think one time we read somewhere it was a tablespoon or something a day or something like that.
5 cc's. 5 milliliters.
Yeah, so
a tablespoon is considered up to 5 tablespoons.
Right. So there's already sort of a wide range of what we consider discharge anyway. So we'd probably need to put a little even more of a parameter on what it means.
Exactly. So this is actually what you nailed. One of the things I really want to spend a little time talking about is discharge today. So you have discharge, odor, discomfort, itching, burning, bleeding, sometimes pain with intercourse, and that sort of thing.
Right.
So those are the kind of main symptoms. And so I want to actually step back to what you were saying, is that how do you know what's normal and what's not normal? And so sometimes I think it's helpful to describe what normal is.
Okay.
And so because, if you don't know what's normal, it's
kind of hard to know.
And so you shouldn't have pain. You should not have bleeding between your periods.
Okay.
Under most circumstances. Shouldn't have pain with intercourse. We've talked about this a lot.
Absolutely.
In our old radio days, back in the old days.
We'll talk about it more here too, promise.
But everybody has discharge. Everyone has discharge. And so the question is, what's normal and what's abnormal? And so that leads to, and we could, on Twila, I'm not kidding you, we could spend an hour talking about discharge. It's fascinating, don't you think?
For some of us.
Well, but it's one of those things that nobody,
we don't talk about it. It falls squarely under the category of things that we know happened. We know it happens to us, and we just kind of we get very British about it. We're just keep calm and carry on, and don't talk about it.
Right. Well, if you talk about two things that you do not talk about, which is discharge and odor.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Discharge and odor.
the word odor is already just a horrible thought. It evokes horrible thoughts anyway. And the worst place on your entire body, if you're a woman, to have odor is your vagina. Yeah, so we will go to Herculean lengths not to have anything happen that could create an odor. I mean, we have built cottage industries that make millions of dollars putting things near and in our vaginas that have no business being there to avoid that alone.
That's right. And so, and if you want to broaden that just to people, broaden it to people in general,
Mm-hmm.
men and women, none of us want to have bad breath.
True.
None of us want to have. Most of us, I should say, most of us don't. I'll just be generalized. Say most people don't want to have horrific bad breath.
True.
Most people do not want to have bad body odor or armpit odor.
Absolutely.
And and then odor down there, both men and women have. If you never took a shower ever, you'd be like a muskox. Most of us.
It wouldn't be pleasant. Yeah. No.
And so odor is there, and so I want to talk a little bit. I want to spend a little time talking about odor and discharge. We already talked about bleeding. You should bleed when you're having your period and no other time.
And that should be just sort of a general rule of thumb.
General.
If you're having any bleeding outside of your period at any other time, that is when you call the doctor. That is when you go see your doctor.
So let's talk about discharge. So what is normal discharge? You actually said it. And if you look at the definition, you can up to a tablespoon. Now, how did they figure that out? I have no idea.
I don't know.
Some madman, some academic.
I'm not telling, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to know.
Sure.
But, so a small. Everyone has discharge. That's what the vagina does. The vagina. We've talked about this in the past, and maybe this is kind of a well-worn sort of tiresome expression, but a self-cleaning mechanism.
It's a self-cleaning oven.
It does, and the discharge is actually part of the way the vagina keeps itself healthy and cleans itself.
Yeah.
The discharge is produced by an exudate from the cervix. So
wait, hold on.
Fluid,
wait.
An exudate is fluid that is released.
Okay, thank you. I love it when you use the medical terminology because one of us is a doctor here, and I appreciate that. But sometimes you say words, and I go, wait, I don't know that word, so the audience won't know that word, and I want to learn things.
So an exudate is just a fluid release from cells.
Okay.
And because cells are made of, have membranes, have walls, and that things move in and out of those membranes. There are glands that line the vagina, and the cervix itself is filled with glands, and those glands produce mucus and release fluid.
Okay, wait. Now I have a completely off-book question. Remember a very long time ago we talked about I think you called it the Skene's gland? Am I right? Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Gland.
So does that gland create the discharge, or is it just sort of a general?
That creates part of the discharge.
Okay. Keep listening to the
Very
podcast.
good.
I promise. I'm going to circle back.
Good.
I'm going to circle back around to that Skene's gland one of these days. I promise you guys. So I'm sorry.
Bartholin glands, and there's but the vaginal, the cells of the vagina that line the vagina actually produce some fluid in and of themselves.
Right, and that fluid is released.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so there are cells that are dying. You're just like the cells on our skin that are shedding off all the time. The vaginal, the vaginal skin. Some people call it the mucosa, but it's really not a mucosa. It's not a glandular lining that's lining the vaginal wall. It's skin in essence, and that is getting shed off. And so part of the discharge is those cells that are shedding off.
So we're regenerating all the time.
All the time.
Okay.
Exactly. And so that is just being shed off and coming out of the vagina. And it generally, a normal discharge can be clear to white, a little yellow, and that's pretty much it.
Okay.
It shouldn't be a lot. Everybody's different. So, everybody's body's different. We all know that. And some people will produce more discharge than others. And certain medications can affect it. And that sort
absolutely.
Of thing. And certain times of the cycle. So most women know that when they get near to ovulation, there'll be a lot more discharge. If people who do natural family planning will actually look at their cervical mucus, and it gets long and clear and
right
as
you get closer to.
Yeah, as you get closer to ovulation. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is really interesting, Twila.
Okay, we're not doing that.
We're not doing that. But just a a teaser.
It's exciting.
God, I remember I had a professor in pre-med who was a very funny and quirky sort of guy, and he would say all the time, "Without mucus, there is no life. Without mucus, there is no life." How profound is that, Twila?
I think you should put on a T-shirt.
Yeah, without mucus, there is no. What do you think? We have mucus everywhere, and it does important things. So, but the vaginal discharge will change,
right?
And so, what I would encourage people to do, if they haven't already done, is to get to know your own body, and because it's important.
Okay, but be specific about what you mean, because
I
think most of us think we know our own body, but we actually haven't spent a lot of time sort of exploring what that means. And yeah, exactly. Like actually saying, if you know your own body, if you know your own vagina, then you should probably know how much mucus or how much, discharge you're creating in a day.
Yeah.
Not because you're, walking around with, a test tube and a beaker and collecting it, but because you're paying attention.
That's right. Things. And so I don't want to, emphasize that too much. You don't want to make people overly compulsive about this. But when you are feeling good, when you're feeling normal, get to know what normal is. Get to know what the normal odor of your body is.
Yeah.
When it's healthy.
Oh, believe me, that's not okay. I will say this. We might not want to talk about it, but trust me, every woman knows how she smells, because we are hyper sensitive about the idea that anything could go wrong with that. So we know we are finely calibrated to know if anything's off.
Okay, good. Well, so and I would say the same thing about kind of discharge as well. And so, and know that discharge changes during the cycle and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And so that is normal.
Okay.
Clear to white, maybe a little yellow, that's okay. And so what you shouldn't have is a very strong odor, and you shouldn't have profuse vaginal discharge that's different than what you normally have. And so pay attention to that stuff. And if it's abnormal, if it seems different to you, get in and see somebody about it.
Okay. Absolutely. Now, I do have one quick follow-up question. When you talk in terms of like excessive odor or strong odor, what is sort of the definition of that? How is that something that you should, if you can smell yourself, say when you're going to the bathroom, if you can smell yourself when you're changing clothing, if you can smell yourself with clothing on, like are there levels here of like, don't panic, panic. This is where you should panic.
Right. Well, that's another one of these subjective and sort of difficult questions to answer. But again, if you know what's normal, you'll know what's not normal. Okay. But the things that cause odor in our bodies are the substrate, or what we, let me step back. Mm-hmm. Odor is caused by bacteria in general.
Okay.
Whether you talk about under our arms, in our mouths,
and
in
we
our
all
rectums.
know bacteria.
Yeah, in our rectums, in our vaginas. And so the type of bacteria that you have there contributes to the odors that are produced.
Okay.
And so, and the other thing is, what are the bacteria eating? And so you can actually, most people know that if they eat certain things, they'll have odors that are different. And so what a woman actually consumes can affect the actual odor of her vagina.
Hot diggity dog. That's like a whole other conversation right there, entirely.
Exactly. So that's a whole other show, because that's fascinating stuff. But so I want to just step back and just say, a lot of times when we talk on the Gynocast, we talk about at the end of the show, I want there to be a few things that people can remember. Number one, discharge is normal.
Okay.
Number two, odor is normal.
Mm-hmm.
And so understanding that, you can know if something is not normal.
Okay.
But you have to confront, we all have to confront ourselves that we are living beings, and our bodies produce odors and they produce discharge. You got to just confront it.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you're just going to smell bad.
Yeah.
It's all
exactly.
Right. It's okay.
And so, so the things to pay attention to: odor that's different and strong. How do you define that? I'll let you know in a second. Number two, discharge is more profuse or different. Itching, burning, bleeding, pain with intercourse. Those are the things that make you want to pay attention. And sometimes if you do nothing and you just give it some time, your body is very good at correcting abnormalities. And 10,000 years ago, when we were hunter-gatherers, we did not have monostat that we could go and use if our vaginas were itchy.
Yep.
And so our bodies know how to correct things. These are things that if you want to suffer less, you may want to get in and see somebody about.
Okay.
So what are the main things? So if you talk about odor and discharge, there are a few different things that are the more common reasons for this. One is a condition called bacterial vaginosis.
I've heard of that.
And that is one of the more frequent causes of odor and discharge. It can cause a strong odor. And by that I mean something where, when you are changing your clothes or going to the bathroom, or if you have intercourse, because it tends to be worse sometimes after intercourse, mm-hmm. you can notice this smell that is not subtle.
Okay.
You can smell from feet away. And actually, I was reading somewhere where they had interviewed these gynecologists. I think it was Reddit or something like that. And one of them said that they can tell an abnormal odor or a normal odor of the vagina a foot away.
Wow.
So that's somebody with a sensitive nose, probably.
Yeah.
But, if it's something that you think somebody a few feet away might notice, that's not normal.
That's serious. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's serious.
Well, I'm just,
that's
yeah.
And I'll tell you
what's wrong with that?
kind of a funny story. I had many years ago, I had this partner who was extremely funny. And we were sitting at our desks, and all of a sudden I heard her just crack up. She started laughing. And I said, "What is going on?" And she said, "Well, I realized that I had a she said, "I realized I'd had a tuna sandwich yesterday and had thrown it in the wastebasket and forgot about it." And she said, "I thought I had an infection."
Wow.
And so bacterial vaginosis is often described as a fishy smell.
Right.
And so if you have something that you think somebody can smell a ways away, that's not normal.
Yeah. So you should be really mindful of
A
that.
fishy odor, a strong odor. And the reason for that is bacterial vaginosis changes the pH of the vagina.
Right.
And so the vagina is this fabulous part of the body that maintains itself and maintains its health by creating an acidic environment.
Okay.
And the way that it does that is that there's a predominance of lactobacillus. And lactobacillus is a normal, healthy bacteria that lives in our bodies. And
Okay.
it is actually everywhere. But it creates an acidic environment by producing lactic acid, converting glucose, sugars, to acid. And so that bacteria is the predominant. I mean, in excess of 95% of all the bacteria in the vagina are lactobacillus.
Oh.
And it creates an acidic environment. The things that cause odor in the vagina and discharge are when there's or an imbalance in that bacteria. When you get other bacteria besides lactobacillus.
Okay.
And so in bacterial vaginosis, you get other bacteria that start to be the predominant bacteria. The acidity goes up and it ends up being more basic. And so then all these other nasty bacteria, especially what they call anaerobes, which are the anaerobic, meaning bacteria that do not live on oxygen, often found in the gut and the bowel, get up there, and they start doing their thing, and they make smells that are not unlike some of the smells that come out of our rectums.
Well, now I'm completely surprised because I guess in my head I would have thought the opposite. I would have thought that the bacteria in the vagina created sort of more of a base as opposed to an acidic environment, and that anything being introduced would have created sort of a higher level of acidity that would create the problem. So now, mind blown today. I've learned things.
This is. I'll tell you, Twila. This is. You can it kind of blows your mind when you think about lactobacillus. Lactobacillus is also the predominant bacteria that is found that converts and protects and creates kimchi.
Wow.
Fermented.
I
know you don't even want to think about it.
I like the comparison.
I'll just tell. And cheese and that sort of thing. I know it's weird. It's different. It's different. It's different subtypes.
I don't like the comparison of
but
the
it's
vagina.
Everywhere. Twila, it's fantastic. It creates this acidity is protective. Acidity is protective.
But I have a vagina, so I don't really like the comparison of my vagina, as it were, to kimchi or cheese. Neither of these. Listen, if you had said, like, oh, your vagina is like similar to the environment cotton candy, I'd be like, girl, that's right.
You don't like kimchi?
I mean,
you don't like fermented
it doesn't matter if I like them or not. The optics are bad here.
See, I think this is wondrous.
Okay. Of course.
Saying,
I mean, I wish
wondrous.
people could see you. You literally look like Mary Poppins. Like you're gesticulating. Your hands are up.
I know. It's fantastic.
You are praising. I don't think you're going to have a bigger cheerleader for the vagina than you. So I appreciate that. I really do.
We should all be impressed by the vagina.
Well, listen, I am every day.
Support for the GynoCast is provided by OBGYN West. OBGYN West provides the highest quality care from compassionate providers, including women's health issues from general sexual health to pregnancy care, childbirth, menopause, and beyond. Whether it's your teen's first annual exam, a new baby's on the way, or you're facing the special challenges of middle age, OBGYN West provides a wide array of services. Their doctors and PAs are trained in virtually every type of OBGYN service and procedure. OBGYN West provides exceptional care for women.
What was it that Betty White said about the vagina?
Oh, I forgot. Darn it.
Something about, oh, God.
Now we have to
We'll
look at
come
that
back.
quote.
Yeah,
We'll find the quote so we can put it up on the page.
She said on an interview, and she was about 90 years old, talking about how, anyway, some expression about the vagina that was hilarious. So
yeah.
we'll find that out.
She's very blue when she gets to talking. She is.
So, the reality is that the vagina is supposed to be acidic.
Okay.
And semen, by the way, is basic. And the combination of
I'm not going
to...
The jokes just write themselves. Just leaving that right there.
I don't know. What's so funny about that?
Nothing. That's a girl joke.
But semen on the ship? I don't know. What is that? Come on, throw it out. I kind of want to know what you're talking about.
No, that's okay.
Okay.
I'm just going to let the girls have that.
But semen is basic.
Yes.
And so the combination of acidic and basic creates this yin-yang balance of perfection and neutrality.
Well, there you go.
It's, and so there it is.
So those two things work together.
So what happens in bacterial vaginosis and some of the other bacterial infections as well is there's a disturbance in the force.
Okay.
There's a disturbance in the immaculate, not immaculate, in the perfect balance of good bacteria, lactobacillus, controlling the environment and keeping out the bad bacteria.
Okay.
Okay.
I get you.
I love that. And so it creates, so those bad bacteria get in there, they start reproducing, making more of themselves, and they make an odor. And so that is the odor that people describe as being fishy and creates sometimes a grayish, greenish discharge. Okay? So the other more common vaginitis is yeast.
Yes.
Virtually everybody's heard of yeast.
Okay, so do these all fall under? So vaginitis is the
it's the
category.
It's the overarching umbrella.
Right, and there are other, and so some of these ones, because one of my questions I had been writing down was, is there a difference between vaginosis and yeast infections? But they're really just all a part of the same community.
It's like you have mammals and you have whales and sheepdog and and cows and
I got you.
Platypi.
Okay.
And so you have vaginitis. Underneath that, you have bacterial vaginosis. You have yeast vaginitis.
Mm-hmm.
You have sexually transmitted diseases that can cause vaginitis, and especially trichomonas, which we'll talk about that.
Okay. I have never heard of that.
And then you have things like a non-infectious or inflammatory vaginitis and atrophic vaginitis that happens in women who are postmenopausal.
Oh.
And so we talked about bacterial vaginosis. So, odor, grayish discharge, smell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, odor, smell.
Yeah.
And it's not as, I think maybe we should call it a fragrance.
No, don't do that. Don't do it.
Would that be better?
No.
Call it a fragrance?
No, because at some point I'm going to want to go put a fragrance on, and then I'm going to remember that you said that, and I'm going to feel compelled not to do that.
Is this BV number?
No.
No,
thank you. I think I like the term odor just because it makes it very specific to that visceral place in us that does not want to be suffering from something. So it's like, okay, keep this in mind.
This is
keep
Twila.
This in mind.
This conversation is so great. I'll tell you why. So we talked about lactobacillus, right?
Okay.
Lactobacillus. If you talk about the making of cheese, and I'm just telling you, there's lactobacillus everywhere.
Seriously?
I'm not talking about that anymore.
Okay.
So let's talk about yeast, right?
Yes.
Candida albicans, not Canada, Candida. So it has nothing to do with our peaceful neighbors to the north.
Okay.
They do not cause infections.
Okay.
As far as I know.
Yeah.
So Candida albicans is the predominant yeast that will get into the vagina and cause a thick, some people call it cottage cheesy kind of discharge if it gets really bad. And what is the main symptom of a yeast infection beyond the discharge?
Burning.
Well, burning, yeah. What else?
Right.
Itching.
Itching.
Itching. For some people, for most people who get a yeast infection, they will itch. Oh my God! And they want to scratch their bottoms off.
Yeah.
They want to scratch their underwear off. And so when somebody comes in and they are saying, "I've got a discharge," and you say, "Are you itching?" And they're like, "Oh yeah."
Then you almost always know exactly
what
it is.
A lot of times, a discharge, a white discharge, and itching, and you can take that to the bank, Twila.
Okay. I mean, I'm not going to take it to the bank, but okay.
And those are the Candida albicans is the main one. Mm-hmm. There's also other ones, Tropicalis, Glabrata. You can throw this out at dinner.
Listen, you're up in my Scrabble game by leaps and bounds.
If you can throw out Glabrata, you are
I'm going to find a way to work into the conversation this weekend. Thank you.
You're a vaginitis aficionado or a geek or whatever.
I want to be an
is.
aficionado.
Yeah. And so, again, those things are, we'll talk about treatment, but most of those things are just treatable with over-the-counter medications.
Mm-hmm.
So,
no, wait, I do have a quick question. When you say most of them are, even with the ones that can be treated with over-the-counter medications, is there a point at which you should abandon those and go straight to the doctor, or should you just, as a matter of course, go to the doctor first?
Well, I oftentimes I'll say I think it's better to go in and see somebody, but a yeast infection, especially if you've had one before,
mm-hmm.
many women who've had them know what they feel like, and if you've got that,
to
just go in there and get a over the counter like Monistat 3 or something like that. And if it doesn't work, this is the main thing. You can try things that are over the counter,
right?
But if it doesn't get better, don't keep trying it. What is the definition of insanity? Trying the same thing over and over again
and expecting a different result.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So be respectful of your vagina. Don't be disrespectful.
I feel like that should be on a T-shirt too. But is there a difference between some of those medications? Like I know when I was coming up, I'm in my 40s, so in my 20s there were like 7-day, 10-day treatments that you could buy over the counter, and now they're down to like 1-day treatments. Yeah. Is there a difference in sort of the quality of that kind of product, or? Well,
they usually all take about a week to work in there completely, mm-hmm. and so the shorter dose the shorter duration medications usually are a higher concentration. And so they work great. It's just some people can react to medications that are a higher dose versus lower dose.
Okay.
So, if the 1 day works for you, great, but expect it's not going to necessarily have its full efficacy until a week goes by.
Okay. So you just probably get maybe more instant relief on the front end, but it's still going to take the time it takes.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So we talked about trichomonas. That's the other trichomonas or trichomonas vaginitis is a sexually transmitted infection. Again, one of the main ones that causes a discharge, and that produces odor as well as kind of a profuse discharge, and can be itchy as well. Doesn't tend to be quite as itchy as yeast.
Okay.
But again, if you go in, if you have a lot of itching and you're having a white discharge, a trial of the over-counter stuff is fine. But if it doesn't get better, get in. Make sure it's not one of these other things.
Right.
And things like chlamydia and gonorrhea, other sexually transmitted infections, including herpes and that sort of thing, can cause discharge as well.
Okay.
And so, the main ones are bacterial vaginosis and yeast vaginitis. And
so I would just say, sort of as a rule of thumb, we should just be encouraging people to go see their physician as a point of order, unless this is something you've been through before and you've already been to see a physician, and so you kind of know that's what this is. But if you're not sure and you've never been through something like that, right, don't just take your girlfriend's advice. Do not listen to Google. Because, we like to think Google is smarter than everybody, and it is to a point, but it also has a lot of junk out there.
Yeah.
Go see your physician.
Well, and I would agree with that, except that I'm just saying I'm looking at it from my own human perspective,
mm-hmm.
personal perspective. If I were a woman and I had a white, itchy discharge, I would go in and try it over the counter first. I just would.
Really?
Just because that's me.
Really?
I don't
but you're also a medical person. See, medical people are the worst patients because they all think they can diagnose everything.
Well, that's true, and that's true.
You could probably, because you would probably think, you'd probably be walking around, if you fell and broke your leg, you'd probably be like, I can reset it.
Yeah, I can set that.
See, that's what I'm saying. Like, you're a medical person, so the last thing you're going to do, I'm talking for all of us amateurs out here in the world, us amateurs who don't know things, who know smart people and think we know stuff by osmosis, but we don't. If I had burning and itching and some sort of discharge and I had never had it before, my first instinct as a 20-year-old would have been to call my girlfriends or call my sister and go, what is this?
Yeah.
And then do something stupid. As a 30-year-old, I was smarter and I knew that I have insurance. I'm going to go see the doctor. As a 40-year-old, I'm not even playing with y'all. If I haven't already seen it, then I'm not messing with you. You got 5 minutes.
So you're taking charge of the discharge.
Yeah, I am. And I would say, and I would hope that some of what we're sharing out here reaches back to that 20-year-old, 30-year-old who might hesitate and say, listen, don't hesitate, because it's your body, and I just don't think you shouldn't have to go through any sort of pain for an extended length of time if you have the means or the ability to get an answer to that.
That's right. So I think what you're saying is being respectful of your vagina.
I agree. I'm telling you, put on a t-shirt.
Vaginal respect. Vaginal respect.
Okay, seriously, when I put that on a t-shirt, because I am going to put it on a t-shirt.
How would you say it?
It's going to say vaginal respect in gold letters. I can see it already. Okay. I'm sorry, we're getting sidetracked. I'm thinking about all the money I'm about to make, but we'll focus. I'm just saying, too late. I already claimed it. I'll cut you in.
So, basically, any sexually transmitted disease that you don't want to have, can cause discharge and discomfort, bleeding, and that sort of thing. So, definitely, especially if you are worried, like let's say you have unprotected sex with some filthy, vile guy you just happen to meet.
Wow. Does he have to be filthy and vile? Can't he just be like, he didn't look as clean as we thought? He wasn't as clean as we thought he was?
Well, and the reality is probably that filthy guy is probably like he's totally at one with his body. He's got this perfect balance of good bacteria and bad bacteria. He just smells bad because he doesn't shower like what's his name? Johnny Depp. Yeah, and Matthew McConaughey.
I've heard stories. I've heard verified stories that he just doesn't. He just thinks he smells great. He doesn't need it. Yeah, he just thinks his man musk is great. It's not, but he thinks it is.
Wasn't it Angelina Jolie who said she wouldn't? I think she had in her contract that she would not work with Johnny Depp unless he showered every day.
Wow. Well,
he looks kind of filthy to me too. And you look at him,
yeah,
he looks
what?
greasy.
Well, I mean, I'm not gonna say I have to plead the fifth here. I had for a very long time. I had a not so healthy obsession with dirty looking white boys, so it's okay.
Twila,
I did. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh,
it doesn't. It's not an immediate turnoff for me.
Dive into that a little bit more. All right. So we talked about yeast. We talked about bacterial vaginosis.
Yep.
We talked about sexually transmitted infections, and we're gonna talk more on the Gynocast about diving in to the depths of sexually transmitted infections. But basically, what do? They cause in women. They cause discharge. They cause pain. They cause discomfort, bleeding sometimes, and often in certain circumstances, a lot more than that.
Right.
And so you got to, again, it's being vaginal respect. RSPECT.
It's like the alphabet song now. Now you have to sing it to know it. Okay.
And so, respect your body, respect your vagina. And so if you're worried, get in. Even if you don't, things like chlamydia, and I know we're getting, this is what I love about the show. We can do anything. We got to stay on task.
I want you. Yeah, I don't want you to
get too far. I'm going to hold you on task.
Yeah, please do.
But if you're worried, don't wait for something bad to happen. If you see a bomb in your backyard, you don't wait for it to explode before you call the police, right?
Okay, that seems like an interesting analogy, but we'll go with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So don't wait to intervene.
Yeah, absolutely.
I saw somebody last week, a young woman who was very self-attuned, and she was coming in. She was like, "I'm worried about this. I just want to be tested for everything." I said, "Do you have any symptoms?" She said, "No." But things like chlamydia, they're little, those.
Yeah, you can walk around with that for a very long time and not know you have anything.
That's right. It's right. And meanwhile, it's smoldering in your fallopian tubes, and can cause long-term issues.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so the other main thing is things that we call non-inflammatory vaginitis. And again, these things, we can kind of expand the definition somewhat to talk about the vulva, the external genitalia too, because it can cause symptoms out there, just like yeast can, etc. And so non-inflammatory or non-infectious vaginitis are things like, exposure to different things like... there's a lot
of
fragrance.
I'm just guessing now.
Fragrances. Yeah, when everybody's skin is different, and some people are more sensitive to things than others, and there's all these different sort of deodorants and...
So does this work kind of like a contact dermatitis, like where you have your body comes into contact with something you're not used to, whether it's like laundry detergent or... That's right. Or maybe like for years we heard about, we were all taught, at least I was a kid of born in the 70s, came up in the 70s and, in early 80s. And we were always taught to put powder down there, things like talcum powder and things like that. And now they're saying you just don't do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So this category falls under things that are sort of not natural agents that come into contact with us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so, and again, everybody's different. Some people are very sensitive to different materials and fragrances, as you said. And so, but sometimes you can look, if you have somebody who comes in with a new onset discharge or discomfort, odor, and there are tests that we use to look into this. But sometimes you can talk to them. Are you using a new tampon? Are you using vaginal sprays or whatever, to try to deal
That's
with odor.
really, but that's really important because we assume, and I said we're going to have a whole nother show. We need to talk about this too.
Yeah.
We assume that a lot of the personal feminine hygiene products are held to a certain standard. They're actually not. They're not classified as health products. They're classified as beauty products,
That's right.
which puts them in a different category. So we don't actually always know what's in, say, the cotton that's used on tampons and
That's
maxi pads, and we use those constantly. We insert them inside of us, and there isn't necessarily a testing standard that is 100% body safe. There's a testing standard for the cotton is a part of the industry, but not in relation to how it affects our bodies.
That's right. That's right. So again, it's something you have to pay attention to as a clinician as well as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Is there something that is in your environment that is causing this to happen? And the final thing is for people who are menopausal, and sometimes in different circumstances, they can get a vaginal discharge and an odor and discomfort just because of their low estrogen levels. And the vagina is very estrogen sensitive. Very, very, very estrogen sensitive, and it's the estrogen that helps the normal cells of the vagina create the environment that allows the lactobacillus to be healthy and produce the acidic environment.
I would just like to point out that the streets of heaven better be lined with women, because after all of this crap that we have to go through biologically just to be a girl on this planet, we should just automatically get a pass.
Really should.
On every end of when I'm a teenager and I start my period from my 20s to my 30s to my 40s. And then you think you're going to get a break. I've done it. I've had my kids. I'm done with all this. And then there's a whole other category of things that come along with being menopausal. Thanks.
Yeah.
I really just appreciate the wonder that is my body on most occasions. But there is sort of a category of things that happen to my body. It's just like, you guys deserve a kick in the nuts for every single time I have to go through something different.
Twila.
Sorry.
Twila.
Just.
So let's talk about risk factors for vaginitis.
Okay.
So frequent partners, so sexual partners, which can just, you're exposing yourself to, whenever you have intercourse, and it's important to use a condom.
Absolutely.
For people, unless you're in a long-term relationship and blah, 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 blah. But whenever you are inserting something from the outside of your body inside, which is generally what happens with intercourse, sex.
Well, it happens with intercourse in a heterosexual relationship, yes.
Well, yeah, but oral sex, that sort of thing.
Okay, so then we should make sure that that's a caveat, because I think most people will make the assumption that when we're talking about sex that we're talking penis and vagina in terms of an insertion point, and so
true. But I feel like you weren't giving me my due.
Oh,
that I wasn't
sorry.
going to get there. I wasn't being
sorry.
heterocentric here.
Yeah, you weren't being heteronormative. I appreciate it.
All spectrums usually engage in oral sex, but there's not, there are these things called dental dams.
Nobody's using that.
Nobody uses. You're
Nobody's
going to take a
using
piece
that.
of cellophane and put it.
Nobody's doing that. Who's doing that?
It's just, it'd be kind of an interesting idea. A tongue condom. God, what a fascinating idea.
Okay, stop
Developed
saying things.
here on the GynoCast.
Stop saying things out loud that you should develop first.
God, that is
there you go.
Okay. Anyway, so when anything is coming from the outside to the inside, you're introducing stuff, and there's also, I don't know if there's a better word for this, but there is a little micro trauma that occurs with intercourse, and it moves things around. It's stretching tissue. It disrupts things.
Right.
And so, and the more people you're having intercourse with, the more different bacteria are being associated with. And so, the more partners you have. Number two, the use of sex toys. You got to make sure, and I'm talking about this as being more kind of broadening spectrum, and many people, no matter where you are, whether you're heterosexual or homosexual or wherever you are in between, are using sex toys. You got to clean them.
I'm a very large advocate for using sex toys, especially knowing your own body and your own pleasure. But you're right. One of the most important pieces of using those is knowing how to properly clean them and maintain them, because combining them with other products, like combining certain types of like vibrators with certain types of lubrication products, will break those down and make them create sort of cracks on the surface that can make it easier to transfer bacteria.
Right. So clean those babies.
Yeah, there are certain products that should be used and shouldn't be used to clean those products. Like certain products, you can't just use like your dish detergent in the kitchen. You can't just, a lot of people are like, oh, I'll just put it in the dishwasher. That is not how this should work. There are products that are made to clean these products because you're using them inside of your body. So you have to be really vigilant and diligent about how you maintain those as well as how you use them.
That's right. And so multiple sexual partners, not using condoms. Not cleaning sex toys and that sort of thing. And then other risk factors include just changing of medications and underlying medical conditions like diabetes and that sort of thing that can just make your body not quite as robust in terms of fighting infections. The use of different agents in terms of deodorants and sprays and that sort of thing. So these are things we're looking at. So how do you prevent vaginitis from occurring? Well, just flip it around. I'm not trying to be judgmental about how many people want to have sex with. I don't care. You don't care.
Nope.
But it's just something you got to pay attention to. Just like when you get in your car, you're at increased risk of getting in a car accident. If you want to sit on the couch, you're not going to die in a car accident, probably. So if you have sex with one person, you're probably going to be less likely, probably, to get exposed to, sexually transmitted infections. Probably. And so you got to be cognizant of the fact that you're increasing your exposure.
Well, I would say because it's your choice, it's your body. If you want to have multiple sexual partners, that's your business. What you should do is be smart and diligent in that process. Make sure people are tested before you engage in sexual relationships with them. Make sure you're using protection at any available opportunity, and be very diligent about using protection. Maybe hold some of those sexual activities off the table until everybody comes back clean from testing. So you can start in one area and then certain things you graduate up to, given the nature of the length of time you've been together and the nature of the testing you've done together.
And I've heard you say this 1,000 times. If I've heard you say it once, there's nothing more exciting than emotional intimacy. So
I'm not laughing. I'm not laughing because it's not true. I'm laughing because it's not true.
I was just throwing that out to see what you do. So douching, we've said this a lot of times. Don't. Douche.
I was going to say we shouldn't carry that over with us, but okay.
I like that.
I know you do.
So, the thing is that the vagina is a self-cleaning mechanism. Now, odor, as we talked about, odor is caused by bacteria, and that bacteria produces the odor it produces because of the type of bacteria and what it's consuming.
Okay.
And so, where are most of the bad bacteria? In a normal, healthy person, those bad bacteria are not in the vagina, because the vagina is suffused with this gorgeous superabundance of lactobacillus that we find everywhere, Twila, as we talked about, and so the bad bacteria, not necessarily bad, but the ones that are going to cause more odor are where? They're on the outside. They're on the in the area of the anus, between the anus and the vagina. That is where you want to clean.
Right.
And that's the main area of where the odor is being produced.
But you should still not be using some of these products out here. Douching products are one thing because they're completely insertable. But now there's this whole class and category of feminine wipes, feminine wash, that kind of stuff that's supposed to be safe for the area. So I think people are taking that a step too far and not understanding that it doesn't mean that, go down there and just scrub like you're at the car wash. Yeah. That's not really... Even those things we don't need. You're not supposed to be using those things on your body.
Well, I would disagree with you a little bit, which is that, again, everybody's body's different. Some people are more sensitive to these products. You can use soaps. You can use, cleansing agents, wipes and that, but keep it on the outside.
Okay.
Do not go into the vaginal opening with it. Or, some people, I've had people disagree with me and respectful conversations, and you can, depending on your own body, you can take some of those cleansers and go a little bit into the vagina if it doesn't bother you. But the main odor production is on the outside.
Right. So if you're cleaning the external parts properly, there should be no need to go putting that kind of stuff up there internally.
Yeah, up there. Don't do that up there.
Yeah, don't do
and
that.
So, and again, the thing is that we're going to circle back and talk about to kind of close this conversation up a bit, is what are the take-home points? Number one, everybody's got discharge. Mm-hmm. Get to know it. Get to know what's normal for you.
Yep.
If it's not normal, get in to see somebody, because it oftentimes means something needs to be taken care of.
Well, if you know what normal is, then you know what not normal will be.
Exactly right. And so, and odor. Everybody has odor. Even somebody's completely healthy. There is an odor to the vagina. It's acidic, and the acidic environment is produced by lactobacillus. Lactobacillus itself has an odor, and it's a healthy odor. And it's described as being just slightly sour. And you can look this up. What is the odor of lactobacillus? There's an odor that is slightly sour to it. Mm-hmm. And some people describe it as being a little musky if you want to get into the man musk, women musk sort of thing. And if you ever listen or read Outlander,
okay, stop.
They're
We're
talking
not
about
doing this.
They're always like they're like those animals that are going up to each other and going
okay, we're not doing this.
So, okay. I'm just saying, come on, we got to come out and say that, we have smells.
We do.
Get to know it and get to know what's normal and not normal. Okay. That is the main point. Take care of, be vaginal, respect it. Show vaginal respect.
Yes. Agreed. Onward, Sister Soldier. I agree with you. Now, as always, if you're enjoying what you're hearing, if you have questions, if you have comments, we want to hear from you. We want you to go to Facebook. And then when you go into the search bar, just type in The Gynocast, GYNOCAST.
So easy.
Now, when you get there, you can request to be a member. It is a closed group. Now, very quickly, very specifically, we're a closed group because we talk about some sensitive issues, and we want people to be able to comfortably talk about those issues in a place where they will be respected, where the conversations are respected, and we don't have sort of yahoos doing silly things like, being disrespectful about the things that we talk about or trying to solicit people based on the things that we talk about. So you request to be a member, we let you in, and then you can join the message board. You can talk to us. We carry some of these conversations over. You'll be able to go on the Gynocast and hit the send message feature. You'll be able to ask us questions, and in future episodes, we will be taking your questions live on our show. That's right. So we want to be able to have those questions and be able to answer them. And it'll give you the option to ask us anonymously or ask us and let us know what you want us to refer to you as on the air as well. That's right. So make sure that you're going to Facebook, go in the search engine and search out The Gynocast. Request to become a member. We have a great group, a great supportive community that we're building. We want you to be a part of it.
There's almost 2,000 people so far.
And
I would also like to add is that there's going to be an area of the site, which is already there, but I haven't really done much with it, but it's going to be a document and reference area. And so I'm going to post on that site some recommendations about vulvar hygiene.
Okay. Well, we'll definitely make sure we get that information out. We'll also be able to get, in future episodes, the syllabus will be available. It'll be available on the Gynocast Facebook page. It'll also be available at the Matriarch Digital Media website at Matriarch. Yeah. The matriarchdm.com. Yeah, so you'll be able to get the information that you need based on every episode. We'll have some sort of handy guides. We'll have some handy tips. We'll have basically a breakdown of the things that we talked about, because a lot of this information, if you're going to be using it and you want to take it to your doctor, you want to be able to reference it or share it with your friends, it's easier if you have sort of a guide that you can use. And we're going to make sure that you have that as well. So we appreciate you listening, and we're enjoying this show so much. So thanks for listening.
Thank you. See you soon.